returning from closed session, and we'll proceed down the agenda. We'll start with the approval of minutes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the February 28, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the February 28, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the March 14, 2023 special meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the March 14, 2023 special meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll proceed with public comment. I will go over the guidelines just to make sure that we're clear. Public comment is a time for the community to address the board with comments and questions. Each community member addressing the board has 5 minutes. We're asking that to be 2 minutes if possible. Once you've been notified your time is up, kindly step away from the podium. Public comment will be for 30 minutes total, with no more than each subject lasting 20 minutes. Please understand this is not an engagement time. The board will consider your comments in its decisions. For those comments or questions requiring follow-up response, the board president or superintendent will follow up. First, we have Mr. Finlayson.
This is set up for the little Mustang, so. So I'm Daniel Finlayson. I'm the Westmont Teachers Association president. It's not very often that the Westmont Teachers Association has come to the board, but I think that kind of builds on the level of respect and rapport that we have with the current board, and we'd like to continue to build with that. Tonight's main statement is to publicly announce WTA support for Dr. Adina Hoover and Mr. Carlos Hevia. So to come to this conclusion, WTA executive board members reviewed printed materials from the current campaigns impacting CUSD 201. The executive members carefully considered each candidate before casting their votes in secret ballot. In a unanimous decision, Dr. Hoover and Mr. Hevia won the endorsement of the WTA. These two candidates have an unwavering dedication to public education, students, the community, and staff. They have stated in their own campaign statements they are committed to providing a well-rounded education for our students and guaranteeing that teachers, staff, and the community have a voice through avenues such as participation in board committees. Last but not least, these two candidates, just as they did with the superintendent search, are dedicated to improving communication with the community and incorporating stakeholders at all levels. Again, it is with honor I am able to present Dr. Hoover and Mr. Hevia with the WTA's full endorsement. It is my hope that the school board, district administration, and staff will continue to build on the mutual respect and successes we have come to know. So again, thank you, board, and I'm proud to present you guys with this endorsement. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Dana Hajek.
Hi, I'm Dana. I'm shorter than he is, but taller than the Mustangs. My name is Dana. I am a community member, a volunteer, a parent, and a substitute teacher in the district. I have 2 kids currently at Manning and 1 over at the junior high. I wanted to take a minute to encourage the community to vote in the upcoming municipal election. Voting is currently underway at early voting locations, including the Westmont Library, but you do not need to vote at the Westmont Library. Fun fact, you can vote anywhere in DuPage County that's currently open. You have until April 4th to vote. I encourage to vote early if you can. Don't bank on the fact that you won't be sick on April 4th. Okay? If you received a mail-in ballot, there's now permanent mail-in ballots out. That needs to be sent in by Friday, March 23rd. That is coming up quick. So if you have it sitting on your counter, make sure you do it, send it in. Municipal elections are notorious for their low voter turnout, and for positions that have the most immediate effect on our daily lives, I think that's kind of sad. So I'm hoping that the community gets out and votes. In this election, I will be supporting the re-election of Dr. Adina Hoover and Carlos Hevia. I appreciate and am grateful for their willingness to continue serving on the board even after the difficulty of the last few years. Both came to the board when very difficult and divisive decisions needed to be made, decisions that were sure to upset some neighbors and make others happy, even their friends. What I value most about Carlos specifically is that he doesn't mind getting into the weeds to truly feel informed before making a decision. I noticed this first when I served on the SIP committee with him. He seems to be an excellent listener. He doesn't ask questions just to have something to say. He asks thoughtful questions and soaks in the answers, citing them sometimes when he votes. Dr. Hoover doesn't shy away from hard decisions. She recognizes that not everyone will be happy and decisions need to be made with the whole school community in mind, but most importantly, those that would be most affected by this decision at hand. Both Adina and Carlos are level-headed but passionate. They've disagreed with others in a way that needs to be modeled for our students. They've asked for more information and seek knowledge before making final decisions. Mr. Carey has followed through and given them the information they feel they need to make an informed decision. Sometimes this means more meetings, more discussions, and more time. Thank you for your dedication and doing your due diligence, sitting on committees, learning the ins and outs, asking the questions, and coming up with possible solutions and weeding out what is reasonable and possible. Finally, Carlos and Adina have shown with both their words and actions that they value the whole student, academic growth, personal growth, and social growth. They know that it takes more than good test scores to be successful. They've supported and applauded our staff for prioritizing SEL, project-based learning, innovation, and PLC time to make it all happen. Without all the tools in their toolbox, our students will not reach their full potential. High test scores are fantastic, but if you can't get the student to sit, focus, attend to the task, and complete it, you will not have an accurate picture of what their ability truly is. Our students are more than their scores. They're the win they had in small groups when fractions started to make sense and they could finally explain it to their peer. The resilience, they're the resilience of having a hard morning and recovering to have a fantastic afternoon. They're owning mistakes being made and growth shown to know and do better next time. They're the millions of little wins, days in, weeks, and years in. We must value all forms of learning, and I believe Carlos and Adina do, and that's why I hope you join me in voting for them between now and April 4th.
Thank you. Thank you. Sonia Lopez.
Good evening, everybody. I am Sonia Lopez. I am a resident of Westmont. I'm here representing myself. I have a couple of students in the district, one at Miller, one at the junior high. And I am here tonight in support of Carlos and Adina. I am more familiar with Carlos as we were both on the school improvement committee a couple of years ago. And I just, you know, my personal professional work revolves around public health and community health education. So I really value that we have the expertise of Adina, Dr. Adina Hoover here on the board. And again, I just want to reiterate my support for them and hope that everybody will choose them this voting round. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank the board, especially those who will be leaving us at the end of this term. Special thank you to Laura Coyle. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy Lopez.
Hi, I'm Tracy Lopez. No relation to Sonia. Just a common name. So anyway, I have a daughter who's also in 5th grade at Manning. And I'm here to show my support also for Dr. Adina Hoover and Carlos Hevia. I really hope that we can get you guys reelected to the school board. I know that you guys show up for things, and I really appreciate that. I was at STEM night last night. I saw you guys there, saw a lot of people there actually, and that was really neat to see. You guys value each other, which is also great. I'm nervous. You guys bring diversity to our board as well. And you guys make the students a priority, which is important as well as the administrators and staff as well. I appreciate you guys, and I really hope that everybody goes out and votes. Make sure you do it before April 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Carly Monchian.
Good evening. My name is Carly Monchain. If you haven't heard by now, we have a very important election coming up on April 4th. So first of all, just like everybody else, I wanted to encourage the community to get out there and vote on or before April 4th. Secondly, I want to publicly voice my support for the incumbents seeking re-election, Dr. Adina Hoover and Mr. Carlos Hevia. I'm not only a mom to 2 boys, ages 7 and 10 here in Westmont, but I work with thousands of 2 to 8-year-olds every year. And I see on a daily basis the importance of educating the whole child and every child in every subject, whether it's through enabling school staff to teach coping and confidence through SEL or supporting kiddos who have the gift to enter the trades. I know a lot of focus is sometimes placed on how much time is sitting at a desk memorizing, learning, memorizing math facts, learning words, writing, but doing this all day is not only developmentally inappropriate for some children, those are not the only skills we need in life. I couldn't tell you the GPA or even what college or what field of study most of the members of my leadership team are on, or what their background is academically. That said, I know that they act responsibly, they act professionally, they are team players who accept all others. They also have the ability to cope with stress and challenges through grit, perseverance, and problem-solving skills. I truly believe that Carlos and Adina, because they possess these skills, are not only great leaders for our community, but also they work to empower our next generation of leaders to have these types of characteristics through what they're doing in the schools. Finally, Carlos and Adina are proven leaders. I mean, how many of us can say we want to do this for 4 years? It's like a big commitment. They've served on the board while also being active and engaged, as many people have said, in our schools and communities, and they're present with their children. I've seen them out there at ball games, volunteer opportunities, school events, STEM night, like someone said, and I am absolutely confident that they are in this for the right reason, which is our children. So I hope you join me in supporting and voting for Carlos and Adina on April 4th. Thanks.
Thank you.
Lisa Lance.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Lance. I am a mom of 2 in Westmont, one at Miller and one at Manning, a volunteer through PTO, and a substitute teacher. So I often come to this podium to address all of you and say thank you, and I do that again tonight. Your service is outstanding. I want to address some things to our empty chair, Ms. Coyle. Wow, she underwent a seismic shift, a global plague, and the ultimate duty of a school board member, right? Appointing a new superintendent. So congratulations to Laura. Your service has been incredible. And I also want to turn my attention to Carlos and Adina. You literally ran into a burning building on purpose because you desire to serve. And I think some people desire to have a voice at this table or a position at this table because they think it's the only way to receive the authority needed for their personal agenda to be achieved. And I think other people seek a seat at this table because they have answered the call to what is needed, people who are willing to serve with their whole hearts. And I came to endorse Mr. Hevia and Dr. Hoover because you are that second type of person. I am incredibly passionate about this district, and I pay very close attention. And I feel like I've gotten to know all of you over the years, just in personal conversations and watching these board meetings and seeing your leadership in our community. And I can honestly say that for either of you, really any of you, but the two that I'm focusing on this evening, I have never seen you use the seat at this table to strong arm your personal desires or opinions. And that means a lot to me. In fact, amidst incredible stress and pressure and even blatant disrespect at many times, I have seen you put aside what you find personally beneficial, or maybe what's more convenient for your family, for the sake of my children and all of our children. And for that, I thank you. When you arrive at the board table, you have eyes on all of our babies. It's the little 4-year-olds at South School all the way up to the 18-year-olds that keep you up at night. And I really appreciate that. And I know that you're doing your darndest to make wise decisions to do what's best for all of those kids. I'm very thankful that you are willing to do it again. I question it a little bit, but I'm thankful. In some ways now the real work begins, right? I feel like you're no longer held up in 3-hour meetings discussing protocols for national and international plagues. You're no longer in extensive exploratory sessions weeding through our next leadership candidate for superintendent. Instead, now you get to turn your attention to what drew you to the table to begin with, right? The day-to-day experience of the students in Westmont. You're here to oversee the implementation of a really lovely and painstakingly created strategic plan. Now you get to turn your energy to that. You get to ask questions, you get to lead, you get to fearlessly serve our great district as we move in this next chapter from really good to outstanding. I'm giving you my vote because you're trustworthy leaders. I'm giving you my vote because you've proven your commitment to 201, not just in this room, but in hours of time volunteering in our halls when no one was watching. I'm giving you my vote because you desire to serve more than strong-arming your own agenda. And I'm giving you my vote because you've earned it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we have Carrie O'Connor.
Hello, everyone. First of all, it's super unfair that I have to follow Lisa. She does theater. Very articulate, very charismatic, that one. My name's Carrie O'Connor. I've lived here in Westmont in the O'Connor Glen neighborhood for about 12 years. Before that, I was in Blackhawk Heights. I've been around for quite a while. I'm currently a library board member. I'm also the treasurer for the Westmont Athletic Boosters. I have 2 kids. One's at the high school for a little while longer, and one's at the junior high. I am here to, firstly, I'd like to thank you all for being here. First and foremost, thank you for donating your time. I know stuff doesn't get done on its own, but a lot of times people forget that it requires a lot of dedication and sacrifice, and I thank you all for doing that. Second of all, I'm here to continue the Love Fest for Dr. Adina Hoover and Carlos Hevia. I strongly endorse them. I want to say that I first became aware of Dr. Hoover years ago at the inaugural Manning Monster Mile Fun Run. I don't know if I've ever told you this story before. It's the one I keep in my back pocket, but she and her entire family were all decked out as various incarnations of Batman. Not like a cheap cardboard mask or even a rubber mask. I mean, it was full regalia, like expensive Batman outfits. So I'll never forget that. Flash forward years later, I see her on the ballot. I'm very happy to vote for her. Personally, I reject the notion that the school district is broken and in need of fixing. I think the more informed and mature view of the school district is that it is a machine. It is full of moving parts in constant need of maintenance, attention, and care. or as my neighbor and former school board member Gary Armstrong liked to refer to it, it's a moving train. School board members jump on, the train never stops. It's up to them to play catch up as quickly as they can. And both Carlos and Dr. Hoover jumped on that train, as Lisa said, when it was well on fire in 2021. Amazingly, 2 years later, they want to stay and buy another ticket. And I think that that tells me they don't believe the work is done. They have more to give, and they want to see it through. And for that reason, I will be voting for them, and I will encourage everyone I know who can to do as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That was awesome. Under 30 minutes. Thanks all. We'll proceed to the consent agenda. I did have all comments, right? That's it? Okay. That's all. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. 1, personnel recommendations. Erin Serrano, long-term sub social worker. Sarah Cunningham, teaching assistant. Mumtaz Barty, food service general worker. Brian Dunn, senior high head cross-country coach. Miriam Stancic, WHS baseball volunteer. Resignations and requests to go part-time. 2, approval of ombudsman contract. 3, approval of March 2023 expenditure report. 4, ratification of February 2023 regular payroll. And 5, approval of IHSA membership.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes?
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Now we can proceed to Miller Elementary School presentation. Yay! We made it, little guys.
Good evening. I'm Tim Weiler, the school principal at Miller Elementary School. Thank you for allowing Miller to share a snapshot of what's been going on over at Miller School this year. As you know, Miller's a very energetic and great place to be. The environment is unique and it brings out the best in all the students, staff, and even our community members. We have a really good relationship with our PTO and they help make Miller a better place every day. We take pride in our parent-teacher relationships, the events that are planned. Even tomorrow we have an assembly. One of our few assemblies that we've had over the past years where we're inviting people in and it's not remote, so we're very excited about bringing a show to our students, talking about character. So they help build bridges with great ideas, and without them we collaborate quite a bit to help bring that Miller School experience to our students. Miller is made up of 10 classrooms, just under 200 students, a whole lot of love for learning, and as you can see tonight, we have a very large support network, so pretty special place to be. The staff continues to improve each day. When we have tough days, we have each other to hold each other up. When we have things to celebrate, we have partners to celebrate with. So we want to help electrify what's going on in the Miller School environment. And tonight we want to show you a snapshot of all the cool things we have going on over on 125 West Traube. I'd like to start off by just saying how crazy awesome our kindergarten team is, because every year I always get a meeting in the middle of the summer saying, we got some pretty cool things to share with you. Some come to fruition, some get teased out, and tonight we have 2 really cool things that not only our staff's going to share, but we have a couple students that are going to be showing you what they're learning every day in the classroom. We'll be talking a little bit, let's go here, talk a little bit about Foundations, which is a phonics program that both Miller and Manning are starting this year. It's not in pilot stage, it's actually up and running. We have a guided reading program that is being enhanced, and the teachers are going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. We have a lot of cool new clubs this year. Even in years past, our kindergarten and first grade's never been able to experience clubs, even in a normal K-5 setting. So the fact that we have every single club being maxed out and a wait list for them is just a really good testament on how we want to bring those activities to our students. Some of those clubs that are run in-house is book club, STEM club, Ag Club, and then we have a couple outside clubs that are bringing some things to the building. And then Mrs. Entile cannot be here tonight, but she shared a presentation that I'm going to go over about how she's bringing Agriculture Club into the building, and as well as into the classroom. We have the DuPage Farm Bureau that comes in and teaches a lesson once a month. And then we have Mrs. Billy here to help go over what kind of professional development looks like in this new age of learning, and then how we're connecting with communities and outreach in the school. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our dynamic kindergarten team, and that is Mary Powell, Laura Hatterberg, Nicole Stancy, and Andrew Workema. Those are our kindergarten teachers. We also have our specialists in-house. I don't know how many are going to be up here presenting or helping out, but we have Peggy Chapinski, Kathy Josowitz, Nancy Nanali, Christy Piatek, and we also have Karen Gigailo in the back. But all a very big part of why the Miller Kindergarten Program is super successful.
Thank you, Mr. Weiler. I'm Laura Hatterberg. I'm one of the members of the kindergarten team, and we thank you for inviting us out tonight to share all of the celebrations and all the great things that are happening in our building. And we are going to start out tonight by sharing the Foundations Phonics program that we started back in August. Through our Foundations program, we have taught the kids letter sounds, letter recognition, letter formation, and how to decode and write words. So we thought, what better way to teach our board about our Foundations program than to have two of our kinders teach the program for you. So without further ado, we have two very special guests who have been so patient. So patient. In fact, Sophia mentioned to me that it's really hard waiting, Mrs. Hatterberg, but I'm doing my best. And didn't they do great? And we also thank their parents, Mrs. King and Mr. and Mrs. Green. They have little ones here tonight, and they've also, they were so kind and generous to share their time with us tonight and bring the kids out. So thank you. All right, so presenting Sophia and William. They're here to teach you a couple of Foundations mini lessons. Sophia, what are you going to teach tonight?
I'm going to teach the letter, keywords, and sounds.
Letters, keywords, and sounds. And how does that work?
Whenever I'm done saying the letter, keyword, and sound, William's going to hold up this, and that's when it's time to repeat.
Got it. So you're going to say the letter, keyword, sound, and the board members are going to
repeat.
Thank you so much. You're good whenever you are. You can start whenever you're ready.
So whenever I'm done with this, then you're going to repeat when the owl's up, and they're going to point to you.
Okay.
T-top.
T-top.
O octopus ah.
O octopus ah.
K kite.
K kite.
E ed eh.
E ed eh.
R rat er.
R rat er.
F fun.
F fun.
U up
U up
H hat.
H hat.
I itch eh.
I itch it.
C cat.
C cat.
A apple ah.
A apple ah.
Q queen qua.
Q queen qua.
So now Miss Sophia Green and Mr. William King will be working on some tapping out words. So I'm going to pull up our Foundations board so that we can see our letters on it and get a little bit of it ready for them.
I have some questions.
Beautiful.
Sophia, how do we tap out words?
You have to tap with the hand that you do not hold the pencil with.
And what is that hand called?
Your non-dominant hand.
Which direction do we tap?
From left to right.
And why do we tap from left to right?
Because that's how we read and write.
Girlfriend.
Okay. Thank you.
Beautiful. I'm going to get your first word up. It's going to be on that giant screen right there, okay? When we're tapping, I don't know if the board knows how to tap, so can we explain to them how we're going to tap and repeat?
So when I say tapping hands up, you're going to repeat me and put up your hand that does not hold the pencil with, and then we're going to tap out the sounds.
Gorgeous, girlfriend. You're doing beautiful. Here's your first word, my love. Oh, hold on.
So whenever I say tapping hands up, you have to say tapping hands up and put your tapping hand up, which is your non-dominant hand.
Ready? Okay. You're gonna help her?
Tapping hands up.
Tapping hands up.
Tap it out.
Tap it out.
Fist.
Girlfriend, wonderful. Here's our next one. Good job. Is this touchscreen? I hope no, it's not.
I feel watched.
Tapping hands up.
Tapping hands up.
Tap it out. Cut.
All right, I'm going to get you a hard one now, okay? None of this easing stuff anymore. Here we go. Here we go. This one's really hard. Are you ready?
Tapping hands up.
Tapping hands up.
Tap it out. Wed.
Kiss your brains. Okay, now this is the hardest of them all, okay? You ready? Are you ready?
Can we?
Oh, these are so hard to use. Okay, I'm ready.
Tapping hands up.
Tapping hands up.
Tap it out. Quiz.
My friends, can we give these wonderful... So as you can tell, they're the cutest part of this. So I'm sorry we're not as cute, but we will try our best.
I love the kindergarten team though so much.
So I was gonna start us off today with our second, well, that was our first special event that was happening. And our next one, we really wanted to talk about the guided reading pilot that we're starting with this year. Like Mr. Weiler said, he does get the text message and the call over the summer that said, hey, we have this fabulous idea, hear us out. It's really creative, just go with it. And he's like, all right, here we go, we're listening. So I did want to give a nice shout out to Mr. Weiler as well, because without him, we were not going to be able to have someone listen to our creative ideas and put into motion this pilot, because we needed a lot of things to happen to make it run. So he was able to give us the common plan time that we would need to be able to produce the results we want to show you tonight. We also needed a common reading block so that we could work this pilot out to the best of our ability. So I did want to say thank you, Mr. Ryan.
Thank you.
So we have been teaching guided reading for years within the elementary schools, but in the past, we've always taught guided reading to our own individual homeroom classes and to all of the students within our homerooms. And we addressed all the various levels of reading within our homerooms. And even in kindergarten, there are a lot of different levels that the kids enter our classrooms with. So that worked out fine, but we thought there was a better way to deliver the instruction. And then grade level centers happened, so that was awesome. So we had all of our kindergarten teachers in the same building, and COVID restrictions were lifted, which was also awesome. So now that we had multiple kindergarten teachers and multiple interventionists within our building, we decided to have each of the teachers focus and specialize in fewer levels to address the needs of all the different levels in a better way. Another thing that we wanted to address was reading interventionists in the past would go to each individual classroom. They would either pull students out or they would deliver the instruction within our classrooms, but they had multiple classrooms to go to, which made it hard. So we decided that we needed to make some changes. And so we decided to have the reading interventionists come into our classrooms, into fewer classrooms, and like I had said earlier, all of the kindergarten teachers would focus on a few levels. So actually this started over the summer.
So we talk about what's the criteria for this. First of all, I wanted to mention that it is with only the 4 monolingual classrooms. And the reason is because of the 80-20 for dual. We couldn't figure out a schedule that we'd all have the same common reading, common plan, and still be able to do that to fidelity of the program. So hopefully one day we can get there, but it just wasn't for this first attempt. Where we started was actually in the summer with the assessments. We looked at the first thing that we saw, which was the kindergarten screener. So the kids come in and they meet us for the first time, usually very nervous. So along with fine motor skills and math that they tell us and numbers, we really look at their letters, if they can name them, and the sounds that they could produce. That's our first kind of raw data point that we used. Then we moved on to the PAST assessment. The PAST assessment is a phonological awareness screening test. So that's a really big fancy way to say the test is all about phonological awareness, which is everything is orally produced. Kids have a lot of skills, but they're not able to document them on paper right away. So sometimes they know much more than they can just produce for you. So the best way to assess them at this age is through an oral assessment. So this talks about a whole bunch of stuff that our reading specialists will get to later on in the presentation. But the one thing that really caught our eye with this is that this phonological awareness test is the #1 predictor for early reading success. So using these scores to drive our guided reading was super important for us.
Once the students have met with their teachers, their homeroom teachers, and they've been with us for a few weeks, the classroom teachers give an updated letter identification and letter sound assessment because the kids are more comfortable, they've gotten to know us, the scores change. So we do an updated letter, name, and sound assessment. We also look at their reading behaviors when they come in. We look to see if they know how to handle a book, if they understand directionality, if they're reading or not reading at this point, but just pointing at words from left to right. Can they write their name independently without a model? We also look to see how many letters that they can identify. If they know more than 40 letters, then they are ready, and they can also, they know directionality, they know how to handle a book, they can write their name. Then we know that they're ready for guided reading, and many of the students are not ready for guided reading early on in the year. So those kids need a little bit more support, and we provide them with a class that has an interventionist within it. So the students that need the most support at the beginning of the year enter my room for 1 hour every day for guided reading instruction. And we're fortunate enough to have Mrs. Jazowicz with us. She's a reading interventionist. So her and I teach together every day for that hour. And the number of students that are in our room is the smallest number out of all the rooms because those students need the most support and they need the most one-on-one instruction. One other thing that happens in our classroom is Mrs. Jazowicz and I took OG training throughout the summer. OG stands for Orton Gillingham, and it's a multimodal approach to teaching reading. So all the students within our classroom get Orton Gillingham every day. They also get guided reading every day. We both have been trained in both methods. So 1 week I'll teach OG, and Mrs. Jazowicz will teach guided reading, and the next week we flip. So they're getting both programs taught from 2 different teachers. every day, each week. So I just want to talk a little bit about the slides. You will see the Orton Gillingham demonstrated in each one of these slides. So there's a lovely picture of Mrs. Jazowich teaching Orton Gillingham, and you'll see those vowel sticks that are laying on the table. And what we do with those is Mrs. Jazowich will, at the beginning of the year, she'll name a vowel sound. Like she'll say "a," and the kids have to lift up the letter A, because A makes the "a" sound. Then as they progress through the year, then we give them a syllable like egg, and then they have to lift up the vowel stick that has the E, because the E says "a." And then now we're at the point in the year that we're saying CVC, consonant, vowel, consonant words, like Kim, and they'll have to lift up the I because the I sound is within the word. The slide on the right shows a picture of me working with Orton Gillingham, teaching the kids their letter formation along with letter sounds. So I will say, spell B, and they'll have to write the letter in the sand, and they have to say B says B, and then put a line under it when they're finished. So as you can see, it's a multimodal approach to teaching reading. There's a lot of movement involved, a lot of tactile kinesthetic learning going on. And Mrs. Johnson?
Yeah, there's also other activities as well, but they're going to feature them in the next slide.
Yes.
The center photo for our classroom kind of shows a whole room shot. It's kind of hard to see in some of it, but this forward picture table is a group of students. That's a time when they can have their snack. That's an area where they're allowed to chat at a decent, volume, because we want them to be social. We want them to have the freedom to talk and socialize and chat. So at that table, they do word work. There's a ton of different activities. They build words with tiles. They build them with cubes. There's just wheels. There's all different activities, and we switch them out every week so they have more engagement and they're more excited about them because there's new stuff all the time. Towards the back, there's a table to the left of kids on iPads, and they're following their individual paths on iReady for reading. And they're independent. They're not supposed to interrupt the teachers unless somebody's hurt or on fire, is what we tell them. So we teach them early in the year. It takes a long time. First you walk and then you can run. But we teach them how to solve their own problems and be independent during those rounds. And then, yeah, there's the two of us. We work pretty close in proximity to each other.
Which is great, because Mrs. Jazowich will say something really awesome. I'm like, okay, I'm using that next time.
Vice versa.
I hope vice versa.
Yes, yes. We have one little friend with a smiley face over his face because he's in our no photos list. So, yeah,
Yes.
if you notice that. So.
All right, so now Ms. Powell and Mrs. Piatek will talk a little bit about what goes on in Ms. Powell's room during guided reading.
Hi again, how are you guys? So just like they started off, I'm Miss Powell, and I have the privilege of working with Mrs. Piatek, another reading interventionist. She is amazing, and I've learned a lot from her, and I continue to learn so much from her each day. Just like Mrs. Hatterberg and Mrs. J, we also took the OG guided reading over the summer or during the school year, and we're also trained in the reading program as well, the guided reading program. So we take the next intervention group. So the student, the next level up is our group. We're still an intervention level though. So at the beginning of the year, these were the students that knew more letters and sounds, but they still didn't get to that 40. They weren't ready to jump straight into guided reading yet. So they still needed to there was a couple gaps in their abilities still. So we wanted to patch those gaps and set them on the right path. So instead of just coming up here and saying ditto to everything that they just said, we just did different pictures on the slide. So on our slides, at the bottom, I'll start with Ms. Piatek. On the top, you'll see her tapping like the students showed you guys how to do today. You'll see in front of her, there's a board with letters on it. There will be beginning and ending, and the vowels are always a different color just to make it aware and point it out for them. they will all tap it and blending on the board. One of my favorite things they'll do when I hear Mrs. Piatek across the room when they're doing this is they'll go, "No, that's not a real word," or "That's a fake word," and it's just so fun so that they're understanding how the chop and blend and what's real and what's not. And at first it was hard, and they're doing so well. Like, I cannot praise them enough. And so she gave you 2 examples, one and the other being Fox. And then I'm at the bottom with my 2 friends, and we are working on one of my absolute favorite things called bumpy boards. At least that's what I call them. They're like the plastic knitting sheets that you can get at Hobby Lobby. They are the coolest thing since sliced bread. You put your paper on top of them, and we use a red crayon because there are trick words or Orton Gillingham uses as red words. So the Pear Foundation and Orton Gillingham, we call them our trick words on here, and we use our red crayon. So we write our word on the paper with the bumpy board underneath, and then we trace it 3 times and underline it. Because you're doing that with a crayon on the bumpy board, it's leaving those impressions onto the paper. So when we remove the bumpy board from underneath, they still have the bumps. So as they're writing it and spelling H-E-R-E, spells here, they're also learning how to spell it and forming it, and it's having that kinesthetic motion to really stick to their brain. Then we're taking it off and using our fingers to trace it, giving them a different modality to use. Then we're also standing up and chopping it on our arm again and putting it all together once again. And then we're able to use our little dictation sheets, and all I do is I take all their good stuff away from them that we just practiced and give it to them and say, "Good luck. Can you spell the word for me?" And most of the time they have it. There's a few tricky ones like they, but come on, it's they. So, needless to say, but they do really well. So they write it, I check it one time, they continue writing it by themselves, and then create a sentence. Our kindergartners are making such long sentences by themselves, and the pure joy that they have that they can do it, and they're marking their short vowels with breeze and long vowels with macrons and all those beautiful phonic stuff that I had to learn because I didn't know the names of them. They're doing so well. They're doing so well. So really, we do the same interventions with reading in Orton Gillingham as Mrs. Hatterberg's class, but the biggest thing is that we just move at a swifter pace. Mrs. Nancy. Sorry, I didn't introduce you. Sorry. Mrs. Nancy.
That's all right. Hello, I am Mrs. Stancy, Nicole Stancy, and I have the pleasure of working with Mrs. Presswich, who is our teaching assistant. The students in our reading class, they came to me knowing 40 or more letters, some sounds, and they could write their name independently, and they showed book handling skills. The students began their instruction with me at a level A, and we'll get to where they're at the end of our presentation, which is exciting. Like other kindergarten classrooms, we also follow the Daily 5, where the first rotation, the students are working on their individual reading paths on their iReady. The second rotation, the students are reading to self. The third rotation, the students are reading with the teacher, where they are working on decoding strategies, their fluency, and their comprehension skills. The fourth rotation, the students are working on word work. Usually that's with Mrs. Presswich, which is on the far right slide, where she's working with them specifically on word families. The students also, during word work on their sight words and their long vowel teams. And then finally, during the fifth rotation, the students are working on their writing. And this looks like the students that are tapping out their words. They're tapping out their sounds to build words, and they're focusing on using a capital letter, finger space, neat handwriting, and using end marks. And then that's just me on the far left, working with one of my kiddos on his guided reading book. So that's a nice snapshot of where we're at. Andrew.
Yes. Andrew Workema, if you still remember, and this is my class. It's been a while. More jumbled. In my group, it was kind of the students who were showing us that they were ready for guided reading at either an A to C level. So not just a beginning reader, but one who might be able to do several sentences without a pattern, things like that. Guided reading is really focusing on a text, both with fluency and comprehension. How we are telling if a student is progressing in guided reading is by doing running records. All the kindergarten team does running records. As soon as the student shows us by passing 3 running records at a level, that shows us they're ready for the next. So I just want to talk about guided reading a little bit. In my class, we also are doing the Daily 5. My students are just working a little bit on just kind of skills to get to that next guided reading level. Each level is different, and sometimes for one of my groups, we might be working on R blends. Those like brush might be one of the words that they're kind of stuck on. Also, we're starting to add in flipping between short and long vowels to make sure. Adding prefixes and suffixes to the end of words to being able to take a word we might know and figuring out what it is in a text. We also are really working, I get to work with the absolutely amazing Mrs. Jagailo, and she is right now working on a lot of writing with our students and just really making sure we're writing more complex sentences, writing about what we read, and also doing kind of a writer's workshop model, which is awesome and just fantastic. So grateful to have her in our classroom working. The one over on the right, you can see I'm still using the same methods as everyone else. We're still tapping out. We just are starting to add in long vowels, short vowels. That's one where we're actually doing an R cluster, an R blend. Ms. Jagailo is working with a student one-on-one on his writing, making sure we're taking our time, thinking about what we can add, all that awesome stuff. The other two are just to kind of show what's going on in our class, why they're not working with a teacher. The top one is part of our word work. We have a student who they're using a paint dotter, dotting the R cluster that goes at the beginning of that, whatever the picture is. And then after that, we do have certain games, activities that they can play with somebody to build words, make words, just kind of keep working, but also get to, be 5 and 6 and have fun. The bottom is just so you can kind of see my full room. Students are working. They're also on the iPads. They're also reading, just doing all those great things at their reading level and just getting all those awesome benefits. Continuing on. One of the things that really makes this work is the fact that we've agreed to really have weekly team meetings. We want to make sure that we're looking at the data, reviewing students' progress, and really diving into what's working for each student. That being said, this is an ever-evolving process, and the groups class are very flexible. We will meet, and if you know what, the student's doing so well, I just noticed that they're still working on long vowels. Oh, that's what my group's working on. Like, let's move to this classroom, see how they do, and then progress from there. So the fluidity of our classes is awesome and really has been beneficial. And students have moved, students have not, and they're just doing so awesome. And to show how awesome they are doing.
So I'm Christy Piatek, and I have the privilege, along with Mrs. Joswich, to go into the classrooms. I've been in this district 20 years, and this is like one of the most exciting things I have ever experienced, and just seeing the growth. I get to present the awesome data that we have, which is so exciting. So if you can see, this is our beginning of the year, our different groups, Mrs. Hatterberg and Mrs. Joswich, me and Miss Powell, Mrs. Stancy, and Mr. Worka. You can see that Mrs. Hatterberg and Miss Powell's classes, we started with pre-A, just like they said. That is considered where they didn't have the 40 letters, sounds, or names. And so you can see what we were focusing on. We were just focusing on getting them to recognize letters, recognize sounds. Mrs. Stancy started with kids that were at level A, the very beginning of kindergarten. And then Mr. Workema took some that were a little higher level. They were from levels A to C. I wanted to let you know by the end of kindergarten, it is expected to have students reading at a level D. So I'm really excited because just in February and March, our students that were struggling the most are at levels B and C. Our students that were struggling just a little bit less than those are at a D and an E. E is at the beginning of first grade. That is what is expected. Mrs. Stancy's group is at levels D and E. And Mr. Workman's group is at levels E through H. At the end of first grade, they should be at an I. So this is all now, and this is only in March. So we're super excited to see
We
what's
still
going
have,
to
obviously,
happen.
the bulk of fourth quarter left.
Yes.
So even our B through Cs will probably almost all make it to grade level of a D by the end of the year, with the exception of, a few. But we've never, ever had so many, like almost the entire grade level meet expectations before going to the next year. It's like, next.
Yes, it's super exciting. So, as Mrs., I think you had mentioned, Mrs. Hatterberg, we did something new this year called the PAST assessment, testing for phonological awareness, or maybe it was Ms. Powell that said. So anyway, there are 9 different components of this test. Mrs. Josowitz and I gave it to them. And they are administered at the beginning of the year. They were also administered this test in December, right before winter break. The goal, so there's 9 different components with 6 possible points. So if a student gets each point, so 6 for each component. Yes.
Yeah, each component.
Thanks. So if a student gets a 5 or a 6, they're considered, they've mastered it, which is kind of what we were saying is the blue. Green is kind of where they're working toward mastery. Yellow is below that meets, and then red is obviously those students that we are kind of concerned about. So here's our fall scores. We had 7 in the red, 21 yellow, 27 green, and 12 blue. And these are just the students that were in the pilot for the monolingual class.
Yeah, and there may have been some students that moved in late before this assessment, so then we didn't include them in the next benchmark because they couldn't be tracked.
So now, this is December.
Good.
Wait, hold on, there's
Hold
something. I'm sorry, it's celebration.
So now you can see why we are celebrating, because we went from 7 red to none.
I'm trying to stop it.
Okay. We went from 21 yellow to only 5. 27 green to 21, which, okay, but we went from 12 blue, which is mastery, to 42.
And we still have to do the spring benchmark.
And we're still going to do the spring, so we're hoping we're not going to have, it's all going to be green and blue, or mostly blue. So that is why we are celebrating. We're so excited to be part of this whole High 11 team. And again, thank you to Mr. Weiler for letting us do this, because we really, it's like life-changing.
Here's our innovative, creative processes.
So thank you for helping us celebrate, and now we're going to talk about our other exciting clubs that are going on in Miller.
Extracurriculars.
Thank you so much for sharing the celebrations of what's going on in the school, at the kindergarten level. But the next celebration is we just want to talk a little bit about all the after school, before school, during the day opportunities. And I'm going to bring up Mrs. Johnston to talk about the 2 clubs that she leads, that she also has a wait list for every time.
I'm a popular lady, what can I say? So, good evening, thank you for having us. I'm Rebecca Johnston, I'm the Library Media Specialist at Miller, and I wanted to chat about, first, the book club. I'm very excited because in the 12 years I've been at Miller, I've never had a chance to work with the kinder and first in a club setting. Just based on schedules, it was always geared for the older 3rd through 5th. So now that we have grade level centers, I am loving the mixture of kinder and first in an after school setting. It's very fun. And I think it speaks volumes that I do have the wait list. So I'm hoping that it's fresh and exciting, and I'm looking forward to the next session, which starts on Thursday. So with book club, I want to make sure that my objective is having that the talks of books. I think that really boosts the love of reading. If students see me love reading, I want to just spread it, and I think it's like wildfire when a kid grabs a book and they really love it. It's just amazing. It encourages students to bring their own experiences and perspectives to conversations, but it also allows us to see and understand the world through the eyes of others. And each session that I host, we have 3 scheduled this year. They last for 4 weeks, and we meet Thursdays for an hour after school. Our first session this year connected with the author visit. It's on the left side of your screen. It's Ryan T. Higgins. He is the author of the Mother Bruce series, and he was promoting his newest, Hey Bruce, that I was able to achieve for free because we use the Anderson Book Fair Company. So we didn't have to pay for it, which is huge because author visits can be extremely expensive. So he presented to the whole school during an afternoon in October. He talked to our students about his path in becoming an author and an illustrator. And he showed the students how he creates his drawings and the process of his writing. During the book club, I used that as a catalyst for an author study. So we looked at his whole range of work. From the Bruce series, we talked about the Penelope, We Don't Eat Our Classmates books, and then the other characters that he kind of trickles in. So it was cool to see the kids fight, like, oh, I know those mice from the other book. So it's nice to see that they're picking up on those little things that he finds so valuable in his books. We dove deeper into those books, and then we also looked at his website. He has a lot of fun videos of him in his studio in Maine. So it was kind of, he's a huge animal collector, and his kids are in the video, so he's just a really funny guy. The second session, I focused on the Monarch Award, and I am a member of ISLE, which is the Association for Illinois School Library Educators. And they hold several Reader's Choice Book Awards annually. This includes the Monarch, which we focused on, the Bluestem, which is 3rd through 5th grade, the Lincoln Award, which focuses on the teen group, and the Rebecca Caudle Award, which is the 4th through 8th grade. And with the Monarch Award, so taken from the ISLE website, the name Monarch was chosen because of its familiarity to kindergarten through 3rd grade children, and to symbolize the growth, change, and freedom that becoming a reader brings. The Monarch is designed to encourage children to read critically and become familiar with children's books, authors, and illustrators. The students voted for their favorite in the list of 20 titles, and we read all 20. The Monarch Award, along with the other Illinois Reader's Choice Awards, will be announced this coming Friday, March 24th. Our chosen one was Friday Night WrestleFest. That was their favorite. The runners-up were Are You a Cheeseburger and Crossings. So those were our top three in book club this session. The next book club session will start Thursday, and my focus is on friendship. So a couple examples I've thrown up there. Hot Dog won the Caldecott this year. Stick and Stone and If You Plant a Seed are all great books on the qualities of friends, how to be a good friend, what you want in a friend, and I also want to touch upon some social emotional learning, so finding picture books, nonfiction and fiction, in using those tools in becoming just a great human being. So that's my focus this year in book club. So alternating, so I have every 4 weeks I have a club. I feel like I'm doing clubs left and right, but on Thursdays, if I'm not doing book club, I'm doing STEM and coding club. And that is the first time I've been a sponsor of this club. It's really been a huge learning curve in what I want to focus on, what the kids are interested in, which is pretty much everything. Just tailoring it down to having that cohesive learning experience. So having the STEM club, you're using elements of science, technology, engineering, and math to solve problems. All STEM activities are inquiry-based. So my purpose is to use this experience, exposure to STEM, in bridging it to the STEM program at Manning. So kind of giving them a taste of what's available, and then when they're at Manning, then they'll continue that with Mr. Ritz. Students are presented with a challenge of the day. They can plan individually, in small groups, or whole group to achieve the goal. The 4 sessions have been, and the 4th one will be in the April. But we've explored with STEM using hands-on learning experiences, using the Rigamajig, which is found on the right. Our 2 builders there created a swing, Kiva planks, other building materials used in our adjoining makerspace next to the library. A couple of examples of the challenges that I've presented with them. Of course, being the librarian I am, I have to have a book connected to the activity. So we read How to Catch a Turkey during Thanksgiving time, and they had to build a trap in creating and keeping that turkey caught. And then I wanted them to create a freestanding structure, so using that Rigamajig, there's an example of that. We've done digital breakouts using Breakout EDU. So in terms of the technology, I'm using the Cleverboard and using a whole group. And a Breakout EDU, if you're not familiar with, it's like a breakout room, the challenging where you have to, use the clues to, what's the word that I'm trying to think of? Escape. Thank you. It's on the tip of my tongue. And then we dabbled in some coding lessons available on code.org. Free play exploration is really something that we try to do as much as we can, and if there is time allowed, they just love to do that. Claire, she made a flower that she wore, so it's just, it came to her, and I'm gonna just go for it. So session 3 will be offered mid-April, and my plan is to focus on robotics using the district manipulatives. I thank you so much for your continued support of my library and makerspace ventures, and I'm looking forward to next year's participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Johnston. So I'm going to talk in brief, since Ms. Sentow couldn't be here tonight, just about, she wanted me to kind of tell you her vision and her goal and the way she connects to her students in her classroom. She grew up on a farm. She did a lot of things that connects to how the earth functions and how life functions. And so she just wanted you to kind of leave tonight with the idea that everything in the world connects to agriculture and farming. Nothing can be done without having an appreciation for the earth and what it can give us. So that's kind of the takeaway. But her goal for her agriculture club is to teach students about the agricultural world around them and how it impacts our daily lives every day. She just goes in a little bit of history. In 2017, the club was started over at Manning. And here's a fun fact that the Manning's chicken coop was a result of Ag Club and a SCORE grant. And the end tiles actually helped install the very first one, which I know got a remodel this year, so that's pretty cool. But she wanted to thank Ms. Peterzak especially for keeping that going over at Manning, even though she is now a teacher over at Miller. One of her goals is to bring possibly a chicken coop over to other buildings in the district. And one more goal, which we'll get to here we go. Chicken coop and then composting district-wide. So she works in the cafeteria every day during the lunch portion. She sees how much food students kind of throw out and waste. She knows that the district would benefit from some kind of natural composting initiative, maybe down the road, but she doesn't, after she's having a baby in the next couple months, so she's hoping to maybe take that on district-wide and maybe start small at Miller over the next year or so. But those are her 2 goals moving forward. She did have Agriculture Club this year. She had session 1 and session 2. Session 1, they talked about farmers in Illinois, products that they make, machinery used, talking about livestock and some of the things that come from livestock, hay and straw production, and then beef cattle production. She grew up on a beef and cattle farm, and then daily uses and care for animals. Session 2, which she had about 20 students, that's on the low end, that wanted to be in the session 2 because they did chick embryology, which between yesterday and today, 14 chicks actually were laid in the incubator. So very successful. Hatched. Were hatched in the incubator. And then they have moved into a little pool in the classroom with a heater, and she'll be taking them home on Friday to her farm that she lives on. But the purpose was to watch the egg grow, developing and candling. Candling's very similar to like an ultrasound. They take a flashlight, put the egg on it up until day 17, and they can see how large the embryo is. The less light you can see inside, the more it's growing. And then they talk about the health needs of the eggs, and then how do you take care of them properly. So the kids had a blast, and they learned a lot during session 2 of the embryology unit. One cool thing she did this year in both sessions was she actually got an idea of having empty boxes, not having students see what's inside, but they had to kind of go in and find the texture of the agricultural products and then connect them to what they really were. And just some of the, one was wool, one was bacon, one was leather, one was a chicken egg, and they had to kind of connect them to feeding animals, pork, cattle, and then matching the products and what animal it comes from. So again, connecting agriculture to the world as we know it. One thing she did at her farm, she took some soil samples and brought them into her earlier session for Ag Cultural Club and then also in her classroom. And they actually were able to test for 3 things, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, to see what parts of her property needed more of the nutrients. So just another way to connect to the world. That's a picture of her husband and her son, and then the kids kind of doing the work in school. And then here's the embryology incubator that started with 18 eggs. Today, 14 of them hatched. You could do the math, how many didn't make it. But this is a kind of example of the candling that happens. This was on, I believe, like day 14, where the portion at the bottom is mostly water liquid, so you can see how big the embryo is growing. And then after day 17, you cannot do this process. You got to keep them in the incubator until they hatch. And here's a little picture of this morning, what they look like. So here's the bottom right-hand corner is the pool that she has, the makeshift. They will probably in 3 days they would probably be able to climb over the edge there. They're having fun, getting to know each other, and becoming friends. And then we have a community member, the Smith family. They live, I believe, just across the street on Cass here. They come in and they work with the students every year, not only in school, but in the agricultural club. They bring in their hens, and they have their hens this year were able to do some tricks. They could jump through a hoop. They could push a ball on the ground. They chase a red flashlight. They peck at the color red, so she has a series of questions, and the hen would peck only on the red item, so that they would manipulate what questions they want them to answer, and they would always give them the right answer. So that was pretty cool. And the name of the one that does all the tricks is Poot. That's the name of the hen. The other part of the ag club that comes into the classroom is the DuPage County Farm Bureau. And so this is something that all students in first grade get to experience. The students really love it. They look forward to the monthly lessons from Ms. DeVries. She's a teacher in DuPage County. She actually is one of the few county representatives of the Farm Bureau that get paid to do what she does, which is she goes into schools and teaches for no cost to school districts. It's part of the government and local ordinances that help pay for that. But some of the example of the topics were apples, pumpkins, dairy, pizza, the environment, wheat, field corn, soybeans. And then this last portion here is, it's a map of the United States, so it incorporates maps and geography, but it shows what 3 states apples are grown in. So the 3 states that the students learned were Washington, Michigan, and New York, in no particular order, but they were able to connect to the world around them and learn a little bit about how agriculture connects to our daily life. So thank you, Mrs. Entau, for putting the presentation together, if you're listening or if you watch this tomorrow. But I would like to now introduce Mrs. Billy for talking a little bit about our Miller Learning Lab.
Thank you very much. I do not have baby chicks or Echo the owl, but I do have some things to tell you about professional development at Miller Elementary. As Mr. Weiler said, my name's Tracy Billy. I am one of the elementary instructional coaches for Miller and Manning Elementary School. My co-coach is Vanessa Fry. She could not be here today because Mr. Carey gave her permission to have her baby early last week. So as much as she would like to be here, she is at home taking care of her little girl. So congratulations, Vanessa, because I know she is watching. So throughout the year, Vanessa and I work with all the teachers on providing lots of different professional development learning opportunities for our teachers, including individual coaching sessions. But another opportunity that we provide our teachers with is something called Learning Labs. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Throughout the year, we provide 6 learning labs, 1 to every grade level between Miller and Manning elementary schools. What we do is the Learning Lab is an opportunity for teachers to learn from each other and to enhance their skills of teaching. So what we do is before the Learning Lab, we meet with each team of teachers and we say, what is it that you want to learn, your team? What is it that you want to do and to learn to enhance your teaching in the classroom? So for example, first grade teachers earlier on in the year asked us to present to them on foundations. As you saw, the wonderful kindergarten team teach us, all of you, about foundations. We worked with the kindergarten teachers. Foundations is a newer curriculum that we adopted at the beginning of this school year. So teachers did not have very much professional development learning how to give the program with fidelity. So one of the learning labs that we did for half of a day with the first grade team was we showed them how to bring foundations into the classroom, how to then use the data from foundations to drive their instruction further on. So that was our first grade learning lab earlier on in the year. Then just last week, we had the wonderful kindergarten learning lab where we asked the kindergarten team, what is it that you want to learn in your learning lab that you get to work with the instructional coaches? And they came to us and they said, you know, we really want to learn more about how to enhance our math workshops. So what we asked them is then, how do you want to learn? Do you want us just to give you the information, to instruct you? What kind of activities do you want? One of the things that they said is they want to see each other teaching. So what Vanessa and I did is we went to all of their classrooms and we videoed them in action. What we then did is we compiled all those videos together and we had them watch each other teaching. They reflected. They gave each other their noticings of what they saw in the classroom, and they together as a team collaborated. And that's what all learning labs are all about, is that collaboration piece, learning together about how we can enhance our instruction in the classroom. So that is what we did for our Miller and first and kindergarten learning labs this year. We really enjoy them. They helped to bring collaboration between the teams. And I think that the teams all walk away with things that they can bring right into their classroom right away. Kindergarten's learning lab went so well that we actually have a follow-up coming up with them to continue the learning. This year for our kindergarten learning lab, we were lucky enough to invite Christy Parsettage and Kelly Briddick, who are 4th grade teachers at Manning Elementary. They are both math specialists. They co-teach in a math classroom, and we invited them to also come to have that collaboration with the kindergarten team to share strategies and techniques that they're using in their classrooms and how it can also look in the kindergarten classrooms. We were talking about using image talks, number talks. What does math differentiation look like in the kindergarten classroom during a math workshop? So I want to thank Christy Parsettage and Kelly Briddick for also collaborating with Vanessa and I and the kindergarten team for an excellent learning lab that just occurred last week. Now, you may be wondering, what are the students doing when all the teachers are learning? We did not just leave them back in their classrooms and say, fend for yourselves. So during these days that we have our learning labs, the students are participating in specials rotations. That's when we take all of our specials teachers from Miller and Manning and we have them come on over to our building. So for last week's learning lab, Manning specials teachers came over and they worked with kindergarten teachers. Now I asked Mr. Ritz, how did you like it? And he goes, I don't know how they do that every day. But while the students are rotating, they're going to the library where they're listening to a story about the hello, goodbye window. And then the STEM teachers are connecting it with their STEM activity. And they're doing a reflection activity. You can see in that picture, Mr. Ritz is doing a light and a reflection activity. And then in art, they're doing an art coloring activity of flowers. And in music, they're creating music. So the students get a full half day of only working in specials, having fun, while the teachers are having fun in a learning lab. Another thing that is great that we have done this year at Miller Elementary School is Christy Piatek and I are the reading facilitators at Miller Elementary School. And one of the things that we have done this year to make the connections in our community is, one thing is during World Read Aloud Day, we invited the high school lit workshop classroom to come on over to Miller Elementary School and to read with our students. It was a fabulous opportunity. Anna Jakubowski and Brian Roach brought their students, are the teachers of that class, they brought their students over and the students got to hear the big kids read and they absolutely loved it. Anna Jakubowski and myself have continued to have conversations about how can we make this not just a one-day event throughout the year, but how can we make it so it's happening more often in our buildings throughout the small community district?
Can I add a little, and the kids were so excited about the former Miller students that were here. That, oh my gosh, these kids went to Miller, so I'm so excited.
The other community connections that we continue to see at Miller is the wonderful volunteers of the parents that we have that are continually coming into our buildings. Here you can see many of the parents that volunteered during our last learning lab or specials rotations for the kindergarten teams. But we also have parents come in and volunteer for lunch and for recess. So we're continuing having that community connection and that volunteerism come into our building, which I think is great for our small community. Thank you.
One more shout out for our parents that come in. We have volunteers in the building every single day for lunch and recess. And just today we had a parent help settle some conflict between two students when they walked in from recess. So they're just advocates for what we believe in at school. And then they're walking the walk and talking the talk because they spend a lot of time in our building. But we couldn't do anything without you, our parent support, our students working hard, and the wonderful teachers that we have here today. So we want to invite everyone here and watching to our Elementary Family Literacy Night, which is a collaboration of our staff, our students, and our parent volunteers. And we're really hoping to make this an event, a memorable event. It is April 19th from 6 to 7. It is a Wednesday, and it's all K-5 elementary families over at Miller School. So come for a fun night of learning, reading, and connecting with your classmates and other families. So we just want to say thank you to you for making this possible tonight and allowing us to have a platform to talk about our celebrations, and for our awesome staff that came here this evening. I did want to say one shout out, our 4 TAs that are in the building. It seems like every year we have less TAs, but we have a lot of awesome support to help each other. The last 2 months, the teachers do a great job of decorating the hallways with the kids' work, but they actually have been taking it to the next level. Areas that the students aren't showing off their work. They've celebrated Black History Month, Women's History Month this month. They're really taking pride in making Miller School an awesome place and going above and beyond, staying after school and working on things to make Miller the home that it is. And Mrs. McCarthy helps run our play-based learning lab with the help of the TAs on PLC days. They help and work making sure they have enough things for the kids to do, and they rotate those sessions out. But really helping and working together, collaborating, making Miller a great place to be. So thank you for letting us present here tonight. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Any questions before they start?
Maybe not a question, but number one, Mr. Workema, my child is graduating 8th grade this year, and he was in your first kindergarten class, so it's like, it's exciting. Yes. I'm very excited hearing this presentation because I started on SIP at Manning many years ago when I didn't understand why we were more collaborative from kindergarten through the high school, and hearing about the high schoolers coming over to read, amazing. Those kids look at the big kids are like, look what they can do, like it's exciting. And quick question from Ms. Hatterberg. It's year 2 on GLCs, how you feeling?
I'm sorry,
It's year 2 in GLCs, how are you feeling?
Good.
I just want to make sure because, you know, you were that lone wolf in kindergarten for so long at Miller.
Loving
so
it. The teaming is wonderful.
I appreciate everything you guys do. This was an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that.
Thank you for coming.
Bringing that celebration here.
Yes.
Truly, it's wonderful. Can't wait to see even more what's coming. It's exciting. Thank the little guys that gave their presentation. I'm amazed by it. So congratulations on what you guys are achieving and will achieve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move on to the transportation update.
So unfortunately, I don't have any kindergartners.
Come on, Anthony.
I'll try to keep this as exciting.
Your presentation is very good.
I
It's
do.
very exciting.
I do enjoy the
I mean, the
colors.
templates are always exciting
yes.
and appealing, so I'll try my best. So tonight will be update number 2 for the transportation updates for the district. So just wanted to recap update number 1, which was held on February 14th, Valentine's Day board meeting. We discussed the current transportation contracts, that's in regards to the general education and SPED transportation contract. We also reviewed the statistics for regular and SPED transportation in regards to number of routes and number of students per route. We analyzed the transportation fund financials and projections. We went through the financial impacts that the district will be facing in regards to transportation going forward. And then we summarized the immediate solution for rising taxi costs. So for tonight's update, I'm going to be talking about 4 main topics. So the first is the bid progress. So that we'll be discussing the immediate solution that was brought up on update number 1. The second is the routing process. So that's the current routing process the district has, issues and solutions. The third will be how the district selects riders for transportation. And the fourth is an action plan that the district will take to prepare for next year's transportation. So the bid progress. So again, on the 14th, I went through the immediate solution to bid out for alternative SPED transportation for the immediate transportation taxi costs that the district is facing. Looking back, it was at fiscal year, as of February, it was about $800,000, trending to $1 million of just taxi costs. So what we did was we created bid specs for the alternative SPED transportation contract, and we sent it to the attorney, and the attorney just got back to us this week. So we're going to be finalizing the bid specifications and getting a bid opening on April 18th. So the routing process. So the current routing process is a little complex. So first, at the beginning of August, Westway creates the routes for all district students, not just those who are routing, but projects that all students will ride the bus. They do this by analyzing the addresses of each student and form safe and close stops for these students from their houses. The third is communicating with the district in regarding bell schedules to properly route and time the buses throughout the AM and PM routes. And lastly, the routes are adjusted as year progress for add-on riders. So issues with those kind of steps on routing. The first is last minute. So the district historically has gotten routes the week of school. So having that last minute issue is a huge rush, not just for Westway, the company, but internally and the principals and frankly the parents of the community. It's a last minute rush. So that's a huge issue that the district has been facing. The second is projecting all students that ride the bus. So when Westway projects that all students ride the bus, we're adding unnecessary buses and routes, which will lead to an increase on transportation costs. So how do we come up with some solutions? The first is create universal routes. So these universal routes will not change as years progress. So parents will, on registration process, will see the universal routes, they do not change, and families will either decide if they want their student to ride the bus or not. And again, these routes will be displayed to parents prior to school starts, but the goal is to not have routes change so we know the number of buses each year. The second is just more time, getting information to Westway, not just the week of, but weeks prior to school starts. This will adjust any issues in regards to routing and timing. This will allow the district and Westway to configure the number of buses, and lastly, potentially save money for the district. So the selection process, how we look for students who ride the bus. So currently, again, the district allows all students to be transported for free. By school code, the district can charge families that are within 1.5 miles from their stop to the building of school that's not in a hazardous crossing. So again, the district currently transports all students, and looking forward, we're not foreseeing charging families next year, but we do have the option to look to see within 1.5 miles those students, again, that are not crossing a hazardous crossing. So the three major issues with the current selection process, again, it's free. By allowing free transportation, the district is missing out on additional revenue sources, and transportation costs are increasing by 6%. Or CPI as years progress. The number of students. So currently we have 451 students ride the bus, which is a large amount for a small district. So by having universal routes and by having communication with the parents, we could see less students, which means less routes and less spending. Lastly, the timing. So allowing parents and students to be added on the bus far in advance to the start of the school will decrease the number of issues such as poor performance that the district has been seeing with our current vendors. Lastly, the action plan. So these action plans are going to be in order what the district is going to be doing. The first is updating the hazardous crossing. So currently we have 2 hazardous crossings. The first is around Ogden, Washington, and Parkway, and the second is by the railroad tracks. So we're going to be updating the hazardous crossings, and by doing that, the district would have to go out and complete an assessment that IDOT provides, where the district will track the number of cars per mile or per hour, the grade level, and have a ranking tier. And based on that threshold of the ranking, the board would have to approve if it's going to be a hazardous crossing or not. So just updating those crossings for the entire district. Second is to form universal routes. So working with Westway on looking at all the students and see what is best for universal routes that will not change as years progress. Again, that will help with poor performance, that will help with numbers and routes, and just consistency with families. The third is implementing the transportation into the registration. So when families register throughout the summertime, having a sign-up form on if your child's going to ride the bus, yes or no. Again, that will help Westway properly provide the buses and again, potentially save money for the district. But having those numbers end of July is way better than 3 days before school starts. So having that registration process is going to be very key. The fourth is implementing a tracking app on your phone. So a big concern that the district has been facing is, where's my bus? Why is it 10 minutes late? The bus hasn't showed up. So Westway, our current contract provider, has an application on their phone where specific students and families have to type in their student ID to only view their route. So parents can have on their phone where the ETA of their bus, timing, all the stops prior and going forward, and it's very private, so that that specific family can only see that specific route. But again, that will help a lot of the concerns that the building levels are receiving in regards to ETA and bus performance. And lastly, after that whole year of the action plan implementation, is to really look to see if the district can assess a fee starting in fiscal year 25, and that will just offset the cost for the application. That will offset the cost for rising taxi services, or excuse me, rising busing costs. So again, we don't foresee any costs in fiscal year 24. We want to take this upcoming year to really implement this action plan and really assess, is that the best way to go about with the transportation issues. That's about it. Hopefully that was exciting enough. Any questions?
I just have one, and that is, did you say on the action plan that the data gathering around updating the information for the hazardous crossing, that data gathering is going to happen from the district itself?
Yeah, so the district has to go out and provide those statistics. So IDOT and ISB provides kind of the rules and how to go forward with it, but the district has to go out and go through. Yes, and gather that metrics.
How does that data, do you know how the process for them confirming that data looks? I mean, how?
So again, it's a point system. So based on, for example, you get, I think the threshold is 10 points. So off the bat, if you're a junior high, that's 6 points off the bat, if you're a junior high student, plus the miles per, or the cars per hour, if there's a traffic sign, is this a hazardous crossings? Those are points within those parameters that the IDOT provides. Based on the 10 or 9 or 11, the Board of Education would have to either approve the recommendation based on this point system to authorize it as a hazardous crossing. So it's a complex, time-consuming process, but the rules and steps are really provided to the districts to go forward.
So you're saying that the process is self-contained then? In other words, it's within the district, and it's a data gathering based on their criteria and then an approval. There's no IDOT that's going to come and do their own audit or going to make their own decisions about what is safe or unsafe in the community. Is that correct? All right.
It's the Board of Education's approval for the hazardous crossings within the district boundaries.
That sounds different than what I think I've heard before.
Yes, and that came up in our meeting, in the Finance Committee meeting that everybody is invited to. District calendar. That came up in the meeting was, I think we were kind of under the impression that IDOT did that work and IDOT kind of made that decision. But it is really, IDOT provides the guidance for that decision, and then the school board either approves or does not. So there are two ways that works also, is that there may be a location that does not have 10 points. It's 8 points, okay? But we as a board, feel that this location should be designated as a hazardous crossing for whatever reason that may be. We can designate a crossing as hazardous if it doesn't have those 10 points. Well, on the other side of that, there may be a location that is 12 points. And we do not approve it as a hazardous crossing. So that kind of came up, and I think that is part of the reason why the Finance Committee went from like a 1-year plan to essentially a 2-year plan on this. Was we wanted to really understand what the district looks like with the transition to GLCs, what all the hazardous crossings look like, you know, things like the railroad tracks and like Ogden Avenue are never going to not be hazardous crossings for us. But so we really wanted to understand what those hazardous crossings looked like, and then let's see how universal routes work for the year and the registration process. And that tracking piece is something that is very interesting. It was news to us also, but there is a cost for it.
Yep.
It is tracking. It is, you know, there is a cost for it. And so, you know, but we really pushed, Anthony's doing his job in trying to find all of the dollars for the district. And really, truly, would love if we started talking about a fee next year, but we pushed back on him because we want to see this stuff for the year and understand truly, like, what can we save just by being smarter? Yeah. What can we save just by really having a much better updated understanding, like what we're doing with the facilities plan, updating our understanding of where we're at today so that we can make the best long-term decisions. So we really want to spend next year like understanding that before we put any fees in place. But that tracking application is really potentially interesting. But long story short, there was lots of news. There was a lot of new information at the finance meeting around transportation that I think we did not have a full understanding of. And Anthony did his due diligence, like he's been doing all year long, exceptionally well, and has been really helping us gain a lot more knowledge. And that kind of came to the realization that we need to maybe stretch this out and have a better understanding.
Yep, and continues to win in the best looking presentations.
Appreciate that.
Continues to lead.
Thank you. No, I think Leah said it perfectly. I think, you know, there are a lot of changes and a lot of new information, and that's just transportation in itself.
Yep.
Right.
So, you know, yes, my original plan was to really look for the dollars and look at a financial aspect, but taking a step back and having this upcoming fiscal year as a data year and implementation, new solutions for the community members, and just look at the bigger lens of the transportation will really help not just the district, but students and parents.
Great.
And those universal routes are going to be amazing.
Do you know of any districts, or have they implemented the tracking? Is that something they're proposing to start?
Yeah, so I spoke with 2 districts that have worked with Westway, or that are currently working Westway. It's working great. They have less number of routes, so there aren't any issues there. It's a second-year project for Westway. The first year, the business managers saw issues of IDs and other parents seeing other routes. But Westway addressed those issues the second year, which is being fiscal year 23, to really use your ID for your own route. And since then, the 2 business managers have nothing but positive views on it.
And I'm sure part of that cost is security.
Correct.
I have 2 questions, and hopefully you can answer them. Not sure, but maybe something to think about. Universal routes. Would you anticipate that children have to walk any further to their stops than they currently do?
So
from
really,
their house to stop.
So I spoke with Westway, and the goal is to make it easy for students and parents, but again, have that justification of these don't change. So essentially what they did was they looked at all current students, not just taking the bus, but those who are not riders, and really assessing which are the closest stops to those students. Second is then they look and dive into the riders. Who's taking the bus this year? The solution is to keep the current routes as the universal routes. So, and the reason for it is because it is the closest to the family's house. So again, that was Westway's advice, is that these current routes, they're working and they are close to each family member's houses. So these essentially would be the universal routes.
Okay, and then my second point, it's just really a comment. if we were in the future to eliminate free riders, I would hope we would take into consideration low-income families and allow them to continue to ride.
Oh, definitely, yes, yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, we'll move along to the RFP audit firm.
Yeah, so our current auditing firm, Miller Cooper and Company, have been working with the district for over 10 years. They reached out to me last week stating that with shortage of CPAs and layoffs, they're unable to conduct our audit for fiscal year 23. So that is why I wanted to bring up for discussion that the district would have to go for an RFP for auditing services. Based on timing, because a pre-audit usually happens in May, and to get auditors to bid, I already posted the RFP in the newspaper, and the bid opening would be April 18th with the approval on April 25th. I've spoken with 2 auditing companies that are interested. One of them have actually taken on a lot of Miller & Cooper clients that they dropped off. So that would be an easy transition. But I just want to let the board know that's going to be in the April board meeting.
Any questions? Moving right along to Illinois Gas Cooperative.
Yes, so the district has been participating with Vanguard Energy Services for over 25 years. We are a small entity, so our competitive pricing isn't as big as a cooperative. So I've reached out to a cooperative, Illinois Gas Cooperative. They serve many districts in the area to look to see if we can join the cooperative. And they have approved, pending board approval tonight, to join the cooperative starting in July 2024. By looking at our current gas consumption, the cooperative is projecting a little over $6,000 of annual savings starting in 2024 based on our energy consumption now. So again, that may increase or decrease, but that there will be a savings going with a cooperative because we'll be bidding as a big pool rather than a small entity.
Do you know the savings, like the projected savings?
So the projected savings using these numbers that we currently have would be around $6,000 per year of savings.
I'll take it.
Is there anything, how do you judge it, like the reliability of their services? Is that something you've looked at?
So they've been around since 1988, and they've worked with providers that the district have used in regards to gas. I personally have worked with 2 of the districts that are in there and have that relationship. So there are no issues, and I vetted and spoke with the board of the cooperative. They are eager for us to join and willing for us to join based on board approval tonight.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Right, we'll move to the presentation of monthly financial statements for February 2023.
Yeah, so the monthly financial statements are posted in the board agenda. And looking at the monthly expenditure comparison report, it looks like the district has spent roughly 62.89% of their annual budget. That is better than projected of 65.95% of the expenditures in the budget. So we're trending in a positive trend with the expenditures. And looking at the monthly revenue comparison, the district has received roughly 55.66% of their budgeted revenue. Again, that is better than projected at 52.49%. Overall, looking at the fiscal year to date, the district has received at the end of February 2023, roughly $16.8 million of revenue, and the district has spent roughly $23.4 million. We have spent more than we received at February, and that's due to cash flow. The district has, their major source of revenue is property taxes, so the district won't receive a large portion of the revenue until May and June. So it's just a cash flow of revenue and expenditures. And we are in line of previous years. And as stated in the monthly expenditure and comparison report, we're trending better.
Just one question. You were done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Just one question. Looking at expenditures, actual year-to-date versus projected year-to-date for salaries and benefits, and then the other category is other objects. I'm looking at the bar chart.
In the blue?
Yes.
Okay.
Salaries and benefits are just that. Purchase services fall under the which category?
So purchase services are PD, any service on equipment, that falls into purchase services.
So it's
contracts.
So it's not part of salaries and benefits.
It is not part of salary benefits.
Okay. I'm trying to square up the fact, it says that we've spent 70% of the 70.58% of the annual expenditure when we were projected to be at 66% at this point. Is that correct? Am I reading that right?
Are you looking at
the green bar?
The green? So yeah, so for salary and benefits, so not purchase services, we've spent roughly 70.58% of the projected budget.
Yep.
Overall, looking at trends, we're above that, which is 66.22%. And the reason for that is because of payroll twice a month, increase on the 2 contracts that were approved, the support staff and the custodials, and then also stipend payouts.
Okay.
And then again, purchase services, what's in that pool is taxi costs, transportation costs.
Yep.
Those payments are under purchase services.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move to our Public Relations Committee update.
So it's good to be here. I mean, it's pretty interesting, the way that today started, when we have little children and teachers and the community rallying around things that are happening that maybe we didn't even know. Some of you have children in those schools, and you may hear some initials, and you may hear about tapping. There's a couple things we hear, and we don't get to see. Public relations is all about how do people get an eye as to what's happening within that district. And when we had our public relations meeting about a month, it was on March 2nd, we started with that exact question. What exactly is public relations and what does it mean to our district? I don't know if any committee could plan better than what we just saw today and figuring out a way of how does the whole world hear about that. The same thing happened with Manning. There were children that were so excited. They were just busting at the seams to let people know that what they've learned and how they've learned it. Our job as a district is to make sure that people see those good things. A really nice thing about being a community unit school district is we have high school data. We see stats, we see highlights, and we know where kids got to. We don't necessarily see how they got there. So we really spent the beginning of the meeting talking about how can we get that partnership with the community to know a little bit more about what we've done. And then from there we went into a bunch of different areas. And one of them was just, actually I'm going to break it down into kind of 5 different areas. One was grounding ourselves on what public relations is. And then the next thing we kind of talked about is something that you put into effect last year, and that's that district newsletter. So we had a spring issue, we had a fall issue, we're currently working on the spring issue again, and it's interesting. Schools have so many things that are going on, it's hard for them to even decide what it is that they want to talk about. And then beyond that, how do we get a big scope of everything that the district's doing at the same time and put it into 12 pages, and put it into 12 pages that people that don't have kids in the district want to read about. And it's been, I wouldn't say a challenge because it's happened twice, But it's been really interesting to see the process come along and see how that district has grown and how our message continues to grow. So as we roll into next year and we continue to put something like that out, it'll be neat to hear what people take from it, because sometimes they can only, they can bring in maybe little snippets, 5 minutes, 2 pages, 3 paragraphs. They can't read a whole thing. So how do we get their attention right away? As a parent, sometimes it's a lot easier to know what's going on in a district, but it can still be confusing. And I'll reference the high school again, because that's that big ticket item where it seems like it's high stakes when we want our parents and our children to figure out the future of a child. Where are you going to go? How are you going to get there? What's the cool stuff that's going to happen along the way? One of the first things that a parent will see is that course catalog. So what we've worked on public relations this year and what we're going to work on in the summer and that we want to have in place for in the fall is how do we make that experience more interactive? And we just showed a little sample of 2-3 pages of, you can put video in a course catalog, you can put audio in a course catalog, you can sell what you have to sell, you can share what it is you want to share, and people don't need to do a whole lot of reading, because again, it can get overwhelming when you hear teacher ease or education ease. People don't really know what the letters or the words or the number of credits always mean, but if you can sell it to them, you can explain it to them. It's all about the buzz. What is it that they can take away from it? And that's some of what we talked about a little bit. How do we connect? What's that message going to be? What was neat about the Public Relations Committee is we actually grew the number of people in it than we had in the past. Sometimes to get people to commit, and on occasion I've heard a board member maybe mention we want people to get into more of our committees. It's difficult. You had so many people here today praising you because of the time that you're volunteering, and you do it on a regular basis because you see the big picture of the district. A committee is an opportunity for people to see a small piece of the district, and hopefully we're going to be able to get more and more individuals to do this so that they can take an active role in where we're going to go. And then just 2 more things real quickly, because I know it's been a long night. But if we're trying to relate to the community, what are we highlighting? What is that message we're trying to tie together? What are we trying to get people to latch onto? It's recognition. We recognized an elementary school today. We recognized an elementary school once before. There's recognition that can happen on a daily basis. So when do we start recognizing our teachers of the month, our staff of the month? When do we start recognizing distinguished alumni? These are other ideas that we're going to roll in as we continue with public relations over the years. And then lastly, we picked when the next meeting date's going to be. So for anyone listening, April 17th, 4:30, it'll be at South. But where do we want to go? What's our next direction going to be? So we started the meeting with a really good conversation. We're going to continue with that conversation. What is it that we're headed towards? Why are we headed towards it? What are we going to anchor ourselves on as a district so people know what it is that we represent? That's kind of an overarching idea of what we talked about at the meeting, and then we laid the groundwork for where we're going to go moving forward. Questions?
I do, it's not really a question, it's a little bit to build on some of the things Jamie just said, because I'm a member of the PR committee, and also will encourage, like Leah always does, for the public to attend. We had a new non-board member, non-administrator, community member at that meeting last week, or last time, and it was really helpful to hear that voice, and I would encourage other community members to attend. But the comment was that one of the things that came up in that meeting was how the district speaks to not only to people that have kids in the schools in this district, but people that for whatever the reasons are don't, whether it's they don't have kids or they don't have them in our schools. And I thought that conversation was really interesting, and I think it's really important that we think about how do we communicate with the entire community, not just with parents about when the next talent show is or how well so and such grade is doing in their. So that's kind of just a comment to the rest of the board and to the administrators, is to be thinking about the responsibility to the entire community that this district is part of. So that's it. Thanks.
Yeah, I want to speak to even before I joined the board, and we hear this buzzword all the time, and I heard it before I came onto the board, is the transparency. And it's kind of used a lot of times as an attack on previous board members and then the current one as well. But I want to take it in, and it was my hope to take it in as a call to action. So I don't necessarily say, use it as, as a cry to the district or the administrators that you're doing something wrong. I think it just continues to speak to that communication. There's so much to celebrate, but there's also information, and I put this in a plea to teach about the district, to teach about the board and how it works, and taking that opportunity also. It's a huge, huge feat. I know the committees are working on it, so we always say bring on your expertise. We have so much expertise in our community, and we put that cry out to have people join in, like not only with the criticism, but with solutions, and that's what we are working on. But also just that want for myself as a parent and also as a board member to improve that there's areas to learn about what we're doing with education, what we're doing with finance, just trying to find that pocket, I guess, to get all of that information out or have that source available for all community members. And yes, I push out all the accolades. I still meet people that in amazement, they're like, oh, I didn't know our high school was known for, gas clutching pearls. But again, it's a cry out that we got work to do. We have things to do in getting the word out, like that our high schoolers are putting on fabulous shows, and we have our choirs, and that should be out to all our community members. So yes, we have so much more work to do, but it's exciting also. So again, a plea to bring solutions.
Solutions and questions. Yes. So based on the committee in the upcoming newsletter, we're asking them, what is it that they're thinking? What would they like to know? What would they like to see? And they will contact me directly so that we can take that information as public relations and we can use it as a district. Thank you.
And then to the Finance Committee.
So thank you. So the goal of the Finance Committee is to, again, the buzzword transparency, provide transparency and grasp a detailed analysis of the entire finances of the district. So the committee had four committee meetings. The first was July 11th, where we talked about the expectations and communications from the committee, budget overview for the fiscal year 23, 2022 bond proceeds, and the construction update. The second committee meeting was November 14th. We talked again about the construction plan that the board approved, looked at the 2022 tax levy, reviewed the ESSER 3 funding, and went over the monthly financials for the previous month of October. The third meeting was on January 11th. We talked about the fiscal year 23 projections, so where we're projected to end this current fiscal year. We reviewed the capital projects communication going forward once the capital projects plan is completed. And we also start diving into the transportation issues and solutions. The last meeting was on March 8th. We looked at the RFP for auditing services. That's when I brought it up to the committee, right when I found out on March 8th. We reviewed the special education transportation services bid and just walked through the alternative solutions. We talked about the energy cooperative that the board will be approving tonight. We again assessed the fiscal year 2023 projections. Outstanding student fees, we got a grasp on in total what the outstanding fee total amount and what we collected dating back to 2015. And lastly, transportation update. So the goal and the communication that we talked about back in July is to get our hands dirty in the committee. So really diving into the financials, diving into the details and the weeds, and doing our work to really provide the transparency for the community during board meetings. Any questions?
It's a good time.
Always free to join us. Just check the calendar.
It is open to the public. Once we have future meetings, we'll be posted on the board agenda. But again, it's always open to the public, and we encourage people to attend.
And this has been expressed, but also thanks to making it understandable. That's the word.
Very
Your
approachable,
presentations
yes.
are helpful,
100%.
so, yes, thank you for that.
Next meeting will be combined, finance and facilities?
It will be
maybe?
combined. The next meeting will, the agenda's not out yet, but for a sneak peek, we'll be getting an update on the HVAC project at the junior high. We'll be talking about an update for the capital construction plan the board looked at, looking at 5-year projections and analyzing the current fiscal year projections as well. So it's gonna be a combined finance and facility committee.
Even more fun.
Okay, we'll move into action items, starting with the Illinois Gas Cooperative. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the intergovernmental cooperative agreement to establish the Illinois Gas Cooperative as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio? Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
The chair will entertain a motion to authorize and direct the treasurer to pay any bills received in March 2023 that have been budgeted for the 2023 fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Motion carries. 3, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the intergovernmental cooperation agreement for mutual assistance response as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the SACIT Board of Control Resolution approving proposed amendments to the SACIT Article of Joint Agreement as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Motion passes. WTA contract. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the agreement between the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 201 and the Westmont Teachers Association for the period beginning July 1st, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2027, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Before we move on. I want to thank you guys. This
This round of
this round of negotiations, the team went into it with some guidelines from the board and got it done in just 2 days. The administration team and the WTA, the union met together 2 days, got it done with, board oversight, but we didn't need to do a long protracted back and forth experience. And it just continues to be beneficial. So this is a good contract, but really you guys put in a lot of the work, and you put in a lot of the relationship work that we've been challenging. We've been challenging you to do for a couple of years, and we appreciate it. But truly, we saved resources by doing this quickly, effectively, and efficiently. And resources are time and money, and that is important. So thank you guys. This is not, I don't want to just move on. It's a big deal. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you to our team. It speaks to the work that's put in day out. It seems, like you said, before we move on, it seems like in less than a minute, we go over the topic, but much work beforehand, so. Okay. We'll move along to number 6. The chair will entertain a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing the reduction in hours of Bridget Gilmartin as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? We'll move to roll call.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Motion passes. Number 7, the chair will entertain a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing honorable dismissal of teachers Jill Jackson, Laura Joy, and Sarah Payne as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There are no questions. We'll move to roll call.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 8, the chair will entertain a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing dismissal of first-year probationary teacher John Cortez, second-year probationary teachers Leslie Amore and Elizabeth Smith for reasons other than reduction in force as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There are no questions. We'll move to roll call.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Before I vote, I want to explain my vote, and this is something that we used to do actually in the COVID days more often.
And usually I would say we do it before we start the roll call, but go ahead.
The school board manages one person. We manage the superintendent. We manage the hiring of that superintendent, and the superintendent manages the administration, and the administration manages the teachers in the buildings. The school board approves all personnel decisions as a governing body and not as a managing body. And as part of us continuing to hire our superintendent, I support their decisions for management. So the decisions that they make for managing the district and the personnel in the district, I support because I support the superintendent. Even though, as a board member and as a mom, I have to take my mom hat off for a hot second when I make my decisions, because I have to make them as a board member. So I am voting yes to the RIFs here, and just making sure that this is mom hat off and this is board member head on, and I support the management decisions of the superintendents because that's their job, whereas we govern. And this is always a hard meeting for that, so.
Any other questions or statements? Okay. I just want to make sure we have our correct vote.
Did we finish the roll call?
No,
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
So can we restart it? Is
Sorry.
that okay?
Well, I would just continue the roll call.
Okay, continue.
All right, so Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Item 9, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the continued employment of non-tenured teachers and the tenure recommendations as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Sorry. Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Number 10, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the one-year contract extension for special education transportation with Sunrise Southwest LLC for July 2023 to June 2024 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, we'll go to the superintendent's report.
So a couple items in my report. One is just a reminder to parents, the Illinois 5 Essential Survey. It's going to be closing at the end of March 31st. And so parents, if you haven't, completed the survey and provided your feedback. Again, the district looks at the data, the principals look at the data. They set SMART goals based upon what's relayed by our families about our schools and the effectiveness of our schools. So please take this opportunity. We still need some parent responses. So again, March 31st. And then as was articulated with some of our public comment, just a reminder, April 4th is the election day for consolidated elections. And one of the offices on the ballot is the Board of Education for 201. So just a reminder to people, make sure you take the opportunity to go and vote. And then to Lisa and Dana, and we also have another visitor, Carlos. Thanks for sticking it out with us.
Yeah.
Till the end. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you.
But thank you for sticking with us.
Even though we didn't have kindergartners, thank you.
Right.
I think we've had a couple board reports, but any other reports? All right. As head item, future meetings and events, we have the Fine Arts Night tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. at Westmont High School. Should be a great one. Spring break, if you weren't aware, it's March 27th to March 31st. Elementary PTO night, April 3rd, 6 p.m. at Westmont Junior High School, is that right? And then, that's at Manning, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was another special night. There's no school on April 7th and April 10th. And then our next CUSD 201 board meeting is April 11th at 6 p.m. here at Westmont Village Hall. Any other dates of? I think soon after will be the Jubilee.
Jubilee is the 22nd. Maybe a handful of tickets left, but keep your eye out for the raffle prizes or the raffle items that will be coming out soon.
And we do not have to return to closed session. Great. All right, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn at March 21st, 2023, regular meeting of the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
I don't think.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Adjourn.